All right, Kevin, back with you with another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Ruben. Ruben, welcome, man. So awesome to have you here on the show. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, I'll tell you, I've been looking forward to this because you and we have a mutual friend in Trevor Turnbull. And this is the first time you and I have ever spoke. But what's cool is about when we have a mutual friend like we do that says, hey, you guys need to talk, you guys need to do this. It just makes it really easy because we just both got a whole lot of respect for Trevor. And so it makes it nice and easy. And so, I think there's, something to be said there for, another point for the power of relationships. But what I'd like to do, Ruben, is just kind of start off by turning it over to you and let you share a little bit about, what do you do? Who do you serve? What inspires you about the work that you're going to do? And just kind of like set a little bit of context and let everybody know, who Ruben is and what's Ruben all about.
Oh man, the cliff notes or the long notes?
Whatever.
So I am an artist. So I'm an artist. I paint murals. Started out with street art. Murals led to canvas work, led to prints, led to a clothing line, led to sculptures, led to a podcast. So everything I do is around the context of love, choosing love, love over fear, and living through love. And my inspiration's people. At the end of the day, we are all mirrors of each other. Mm-hmm. And the conversations we have with ourselves are also conversations other people are having. And if we put those conversations out in the world, maybe someone can then take that conversation, apply it to themselves, and answer something that they're trying to solve, or interpret it in a way that it gives them the answer that they need, even though that may not have been the original way that I put it out into the world. So it's just this interesting thing of, when you're in service to yourself and to people, the reciprocity of what comes back to you is incredible. And at the end of the day, I'm showing people that if you choose the lens of love, we can look at the world the way it's meant to be. And humans are meant to just love. And it's really hard when you turn on the TV and you're just served spoonfuls, buffets of fear. Yeah. Whether it's politics, pandemics, violence and shootings, like we're always highlighting the negative, the violence, and not really giving the light to the love. And the love is what unites us after the violence happens, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the quickie.
So now you got me curious. This is really cool. How did you get into this, Ruben? How did you get into this, and how long have you been doing this?
So I've been an artist my entire life.
Okay.
Right, from here to here. But I'm listening to the world, listening to my parents, listening to everything. The path was, go be a doctor, go be a banker, go be an attorney, go do the normal stuff. So I actually went to school to be a doctor. I was going to be a surgeon. And then I ended up in real estate, made boatloads of money in real estate. 2008 happens, I lose all my money. And during that time, I started to realize, I'm showing my success of my self-worth in what I amassed. Diamond watches, big rims on my trucks, very nice cars and boats and houses and you name it. And when all that goes away, it's like, wait a minute, it's me here still standing here without the nice things. And you start realizing there's a hole in my philosophy. There's a hole in who I am. How do I fix this hole? Because buying things isn't the solution, and especially isn't the solution when you're bankrupt and broke. Yeah. And then a year goes by and I go into finance. I become a financial advisor. 5 years into it, I find myself again in this trap. Oh no, money is my carrot. Money is my worth. Money is my value. And I start getting really depressed about this. I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to solve this issue that I'm having? Where am I going to do the work? I go and start doing some work on myself. Emotional intelligence leads me back to being the artist that I've always been, leads me back to finding the answers or seeking the answers of the questions that I was asking, that ultimately I had most of that stuff inside me already. Yeah. I had just lost my way. Yeah. That led me to doing this work. And one mural after the next mural after the next mural. You know, I started painting in 2014. I didn't leave my financial advising career until 2018. So full time, I've been doing this since 2018. And I just, once I let go, it just became what it became. And I just got to keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing. That's kind of the easiest way of saying it. You know, when you listen to your truth and your purpose and what it's coming from inside of you, it's always there. The answers are always there. And I'm not being hokey and like the spirits are talking to you or any of that. No, like, you know what you want to do. And it's just a matter of surrendering. You know, I have this new quote I've been repeating in my head for some reason. Society says so. And we tend to like, okay, well, society says so, then it must be the truth. It must be right. It must be who I am. But I'm answering it with, but I say no. Because if I continued down the path of what society said, then it'd still be in finance and I'd be depressed and miserable and who knows, probably divorced and whatever the case is. Like, I started foreseeing what was going to happen, but I had to bet on myself. So
Yeah. So now I'm gonna dig a little bit more. So you've been doing this full time since 2018. So since making that shift, what's happened since 2018 over the last 4 years?
oh man, obviously there's still the self-doubt. What's this business going to look like? Where am I growing into? You know, if you've ever painted a mural, which most people haven't, it's long days. You know, I could be on a wall for 12 hours, 6 days a week. Like, your body's beat up, my knees hurt, my feet hurt. Like, I can't paint murals forever. Like, what's next? Where am I taking this? Where am I evolving? How can I create maximum impact to maximum people? You know, the cool thing about a mural is 40, 50,000 people can drive by that any given day based on its location. I have a mural in Oakland that's right in front of a freeway. Millions of people drive in front of that. So to me, the ROI of impact, that's worth the 4 days I'm hanging off the side of a building,
Yeah.
you know, risking my life. Because like, that stage comes up and you look down like, wow, that's 7 stories down.
Wow.
But the impact is worth it. And you know, I can't measure it and stuff, but I just know people see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that answers it. I'm kind of lost track there.
No, that's all right. I mean, there is no right or wrong answer. There's whatever your answer is. So I for one, just listening to you share, am inspired because I've gone through a lot of this myself, and had businesses that were incredibly successful by anybody's standards from the outside looking in, but yet I was unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And really answering the question of, well, what would feed me? What would make me feel good, and how can I serve other people in a way that would feed me too? And that has made such a huge difference. And and what you said about the answers are there. We have the answers, they're there, but most of us don't get the heck out. We got all this chatter running around in our heads that it's just we don't get any peace and quiet to just sit and like let it come to us. And but when we do, and my buddy Jesse talks about expecting and setting the expectation that it is going to happen. And what a difference. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to shift gears a little bit. And I know you and I were talking before we hit the record button that there's been a lot of people that have had an impact in your life over the years. But I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. And I know, I'll just let everybody know that what I tell everybody that I've ever interviewed for this podcast is there is no right or wrong answer to this question either. There is only what is your answer, what feels right in this moment, right here, right now, because that's what we got. And so let me reiterate the question, and then we'll dig into this a little bit. So have you ever been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person. And Ruben, I'm just excited to hear your story, your experience about this, and then whatever comes up, and just to be able to share, because like the goal is we're going to inspire the audience, the listeners, to place more intentional focus on creating real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own lives.
So I'm going to name a couple of people that had a moment toward me choosing who I am now.
Okay.
And then I'll ultimately leave it with that last person.
Okay.
So while I was in finance, 5 years into it, sitting here depressed, figuring out what am I going to do with my life? Like, I am miserable. I'm doing everything in my power to avoid work. And I was always self-employed. So if I didn't work, I didn't make a paycheck, or it wasn't big enough, But luckily I was doing well enough where stuff was at least taken care of. But at the same time, I wasn't growing it. I wasn't expanding it because I didn't know what this was going to look like. So at that time, I was open to anything. I was open to like, who's going to give me the magic answer? What can I do? What course can I take? What trip can I go on? What book can I read? What podcast can I listen to? And my buddy Lewis Howes is a huge podcast, The School of Greatness. This was pre-School of Greatness for him. I mean, what he's done is spectacular over the last decade. But he just said, "Hey, Ruben, I've been doing this really cool thing. Want to come grab a cup of coffee with me?" I'm like, "Sure, let's do it." And he just shared this leadership experience, this workshop he was working on, emotional intelligence and that kind of work before it became such a buzzword. I mean, this was 2013.
Okay.
I don't think emotional intelligence is being thrown out the way it is now. Now you can see a social media post every other post about it.
Yep.
And I went ahead and I did it. I signed up, went down the path, and started doing the work, started unpacking myself, started figuring things out. And in that course, by the end of it, I had to keep saying yes. So I continued to go through it. I continued to choose. And at the end, you'll notice that just remember the actions that I kept taking. I met my buddy, Evan Meyer. Evan Meyer was running around Lincoln Boulevard, knocking on doors. "Hey, your wall's ugly. Can we paint a mural?" And he would just help artists just put murals up there. I was designing the hoodie for our graduating class at this point, and he saw the design, said, "Hey, that needs to go on a wall." I'm like, "Huh? Like a mural?" He's like, "Yeah." So that became this mural in 2013, 2014. That was the first mural that kicked off this whole thing and this becoming of who I am. And that mural says, "Who will you be?" It asked that question and it had a bunch of ways of being. Because in my head is like, if I'm depressed and I'm feeling unworthy and I'm not belonging and questioning everything in life, what do I need to see on a wall to inspire me to choose other? So if I'm like, Ruben, like I'm unworthy today, like I don't belong, I have no purpose. But if I look up at a mural that says, "Who will you be?" And then I choose, I'm going to be a leader, I'm going to be responsible, and I'm going to be worthy of the love that I deserve. So now I'm choosing. So that was the first mural that started Live Through Love, but it took years for me to condense it to like what we are now at Live Through Love. Mm-hmm. So that was Evan. And then for the next couple of years, I was still in finance, painting a mural here and there. Evan and I partner up. We turned this into a nonprofit called Beautify Earth. That is now a for-profit that's called Beautify. It's a marketplace to connect murals and artists and sponsors. So that's another really cool business that came out of that. But then the next person I met was my now wife, right? And I was painting and I was doing finance. And I was painting, I was finance. And then I was dating her. And then I would share my poetry with her and share my art with her. And she's like, "You need to do that. Like, you need to do that." So she became the muse, like the muse in all sense of what a muse is. And that helped me with that next transition of trying to choose full-time artists. So in 2014, I meet her, and I'm 2015, 16, finally 2018, I stopped going to the office. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And in between that, there was a lot of other people. Like my clients were just telling me, "You need to go do this and stop doing, like, we'll be fine. I don't need you to help me with my finances more. Go do the art. Go be what you're supposed to be. So all these people start moving down this path. Now I surrender and I'm finally like, I just got to do this. And what's the worst case scenario? And this is when I was asking myself, like, Ruben, what are you afraid of? You've been self-employed your whole life. You've been commission placed your whole life. You need to choose yourself again and just go see what happens. Worst case, you could fall back to something else because you've done a lot of different business ventures, whatever the case is. I never had a plan B if I'm going back to finance. Like, I just knew I wasn't happy in it. It's a great business. It's great for people. My advisor took over my book of business, and he handles all my stuff. Like, I have all the life insurance, the disability insurance, and the investments. It was just not the business I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Once I chose this, I met a lot of different people that are like, hey, you know, come work with my brand, or let's do this mural, let's do this project, let's go do a mural in a prison, and let's go do a TED Talk. So there's just a lot of random important people in my life that just led me down all these paths that continued me to this point, to just doing an NFL project where we kicked off the 2022 NFL season with Choosing Love and some art and some sculptures. Like, these are all dream projects coming up and other things that are happening. Now, the common denominator in this past these other names are me. I had to get over myself and start choosing all this stuff and actually believing in this stuff. So if anything, just like any idea, an idea could be the most magical idea in the world, but if you don't execute it, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
So I could be listening to all these people, taking in all these books, but I think if Ruben didn't choose to execute and take these choices and move forward, I wouldn't be who I am today, right? If I didn't find the courage to choose myself, if I didn't take the risk in myself and all these things, then I wouldn't be here either. So, like, Lewis was the catalyst that led me down the course to meet Evan, where I painted the first mural. Then my now wife, you know, and here we are.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I would say it. You know, it's not, you know, I one day I'll meet The Rock. He's on my list. I want to meet The Rock, and I've met some really cool people, and I get to hang out with cooler people all the time. But at the end of the day, it's doing all the work and believing in the path that allows me to be in the circles with these people, to have the conversations to continue moving forward.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. I mean, what an inspiring story, Ruben. And so I'm curious, because, you know, I have had to go through so much of what, I mean, man, in so much of this, I feel like, dang, he's talking right to me, you know. And so, because I have had I want to watch my language. I have had the opportunity to just grow a lot over the last 5-10 years, and I'm continuing to grow and just continuing to step into this role that I get to hold, and for the people that I get to serve, and the impact that I get to make in this world. And so I'm curious, you know, you've shared this amazing journey, and right now, with where you're at and where you see yourself going from here, what does growth look like for you? I mean, and do you still kind of like, I don't know, man, you know, can I really do that? And like, what does that look like for you, Ruben?
You know, that's a great question, because if you segment it into what you're applying it to. So what does growth look like? You know, ever forward motion, right? You're always moving forward, keeping the momentum happening. I think where I get caught up is not celebrating the wins, because I'm like, what's next? So I got to first scale myself back, celebrate the wins, and not worry about what's next so soon. But looking back at everything as a whole, right? If I look at just revenue, am I making more this year than last year? That's growth. You know, for business, right? Is my email list bigger? Am I selling more products? Am I like, but does that mean that that's the growth that's growth just on business? Now, what does growth look like for me as a human being and a man? Like, do I continue showing up this way? Do I continue getting better? Do I continue expanding myself? So this year I launched a podcast as an extension of what Living Through Love is, and highlighting other people, how they're already doing it and having these conversations. So that is another level of growth. But my bar is so high, and sometimes it's not believing in the why or is it possible. Sometimes it's more like how am I going to scale my clothing line to $100 million? Like, I've never ran an organization like that. And is it actually me doing it, or is it me breaking that off to a separate business entity, which I just started doing, and breaking the business apart to do different things, and then bringing someone in that could take that part to 100 million, right? There's people that do things better than me.
Yeah.
I'm good at what I do, and I need to continue being in that space. The minute I get off track and try to do something else, maybe that's going to inhibit some of the other things. Like, I need to keep doing the art and expanding the art, showing that message and showing up and talking, not necessarily figuring out how to scale one thing to that next thing.
Yeah.
So I think growth now looks like, who are the key players that are going to start bringing in? How can I start setting up the business to be able to scale at different levels? It's also growing the family. How many more kids are we going to have? Getting the next house, getting like the travel. So it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Staying fit, staying healthy. Like, to me, growth is it's all of it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's getting stuck in just the KPIs.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. This has been really enlightening, and I know, for anybody listening, this can be like, dang, Kev, man, I just totally love Ruben and the way he shows up. How can they find out more about the work you're doing in the world, the impact you're making? How can any websites or resources they can take a look at?
Mm-hmm. So at Ruben Rojas on Twitter, Instagram, RubenRojas.com, LinkedIn. I mean, just Google Ruben Rojas, RubenRojas. Don't spell it like the sandwich, and stuff will show up. Right? It's all on Google.
Very good. Okay. Okay. So, any last thing you want to share before we call it a wrap, Ruben?
I believe that if we believe in taking responsibility for everything, no matter how big or how small, we can show up the way we want to show up.
Yeah.
And I also think it's not worrying about, am I Jeff Bezos? Am I Elon Musk? Am I The Rock? It's more like, if I really own myself, can I get to that level? Yes. But if you're like, I want to be that, no, I'm never going to be any of them. It's not even possible. So I think it's just own you, be true to yourself, and be the best of whatever it is that you want to be. Whether it's like, I want to be the best dad I can ever be, and if everything else falls off the planet and that's the only thing, then amazing.
Yeah.
My son is my legacy. He's 19 months. So I got to focus on that.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, Ruben, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. I really appreciate it. You've shared some great insight here today. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.